I'm big on telephone calls. I find they are incredible for taking a one-off donor and making them a monthly donor. They're great for just upgrades in general. They're great for retention. They're also amazing for acquisition. Even though cold calls, you get a lot of rejections. I think it's like a 2% conversion rate at best for cold calls. However, just like face-to-face, telephone calls are super effective in your development program. Now, I wanted to run something by you. I read a study this week and it was titled this: "Thank you calls don't make a difference." And I literally was like, like, what is this doing on the internet? This can't be true. So my training is as a nurse. So I love looking at papers, abstracts, graphs, all that. That's my thing. So I opened it up and here's what was going on. A woman named Anya, she is a behavioral economic. She studies economics. That's what we're gonna do here. What she did was she started out with the core question: do phone calls make donors more likely to give again? She partnered with 70 TV stations and a very large NGO. These studies lasted between 2011 and 2017. So there was about 600,000 donors, 500,000 thank you calls were made, and they were studying the difference between the group that was called and then the group of donors that were not called. What they found was, across these many years, there was a 30% retention rate of these first-time givers, whether they were called or not. So there was like a null difference. So they came to the conclusion, hey, thank you phone calls make no impact on subsequent giving, and that's how they ended their paper. Now, I'm like reading this, scratching my head, because if you were reading this quickly, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, well, we're not gonna call. There are so many things we have to pull apart that are affecting the conclusion of this study. First of all, these thank you phone calls were made 3 to 7 months after the first gift. Most donors don't even remember making a gift 3 months later. I mean, the first 90 days, you've got to engage them, thank them, report, and ask for another gift. So I don't care if your cultivation activities are 3 to 7 months later, they're not going to move the needle. Your donor is most engaged in those 90 days, and as you know, and as I say every time, we know that the likelihood of getting a second gift is highest within the 45 days after the first gift. So how do you integrate that with thanking and reporting? You thank them well, you thank them a lot in different formats, you make it authentic, human, relational. Okay, you thank them, then you report, and then you ask for a gift. And if you can call, even better to ask. So again, that was problem number one. Glaring problem here. It was 70 public TV stations. Okay, that is a very tiny, tiny segment of the nonprofit sector. We know that 60% of all nonprofits have annual budgets of less than 500K. So, this is a whole nother segment of the nonprofit space. The conclusions that Anaya and her team drew cannot be applied to the entire nonprofit space. It just can't. The other thing is they worked with one huge NGO. Again, like I just said, the majority of nonprofits, I think it's like in the 90 percentile. All right, and here's the third problem. A phone call alone will not sustain any giving program. You know that. We cannot expect one email to do much. We cannot expect one piece of direct mail to do much. Repetition is everything. You know that. Getting in front of your donor, being repetitive, expressing gratitude, or asking multiple times. I mean, in general, if you're going to be doing a fundraising campaign, you have to ask far more than you're comfortable with. So why would it be different for thanking? And the fourth big problem I have is we have no idea what type of development program, cultivation program, welcome series was in place for any of these TV stations or the large NGO. I'm sure you've signed up for plenty of emails or given gifts and you're like stunned because you gave a gift and you never heard a word, or you heard something and it was like transactional. It was like, here's your receipt, sign up for our email list, something like that. So because of who was studied, we had no idea of what their existing development programs looked like. Don't take these findings and apply them to your nonprofit, because once again, clearly they don't apply to you. What should you know about calls? Well, I'll tell you this, one of the best things you could do for your nonprofit right now, anytime you get a first-time gift, I want you to thank them immediately, make sure they feel loved, and then call them up a week and a half later and say, hey, would you become a monthly giver? We know that one-time donors are the best monthly givers. And then we know monthly givers are far more valuable than maybe a donor who gave a one-time gift who gives a second time. We also know that the telephone has a conversion rate of anywhere between 3 and 10%. So I would recommend call. How much should you ask for? You tend to ask for a monthly gift of between 30 and 40% of the one-time gift they've given. So that's something for you to flag in your mind, come back to later. And then in terms of just basic stats, why should you even call donors in general? I mean, we have a lot of anecdotal. We have a lot of reports from people who have been doing fundraising at scale for many years. Gail Perry tends to find that welcome calls, like for a first-time donor, they increase donor retention by 30%. surveys of donors, they said they're far more likely to give. Like I think 20% of people said they're more likely to give should they get a welcome call or a thank you call. And then a consulting firm in the UK has found that one-time donors are 4 times more likely to give again should they get a thank you call. And then there is that oh so familiar stat from Penelope Burke, who has found that donors who get a thank you call from a board member within 48 hours after their gift will increase their next gift by around 39%. Now, tactically with phones, what should you know? Well, multi-channel integrated fundraising is always more effective than just a one-channel approach. So whether you're thanking or you're asking, you don't want to just use email or just use mail, you want to combine, and you also want to use telephone. We know that a multi-channel approach not only boosts donor retention, but it also boosts the size of the gifts that they give. When should you call? Well, if the goal is to get a gift, you want to call on a Sunday or Monday. Statistically, donors are far more likely to give on those days. I also find across the board with everyone I work with and myself, emails sent on Mondays tend to perform best, which always surprises me because I dread getting into my email on Monday, but that's the research. Now, what should you say? Well, don't say, hi, do you have time to talk? Don't do that in business, sales, or with nonprofits. You just want to say, hi, this is Danielle Wallace calling from Grow Better, and I just was calling to say thank you for your generosity. I would be quick. I would not ask if they have time. When someone calls you, what do you want to know? You would say, why are you calling me? What do you want? So tell them right off the bat who you are and what you want. Either you're calling to thank or you're calling to ask them for a monthly gift because they've been so generous and you know they want to help more people. And let's say you get a little nervous and you don't know what to say, which happens to me all the time. Just rely on a nice, happy inflection of the voice. I guarantee you, especially if you're just thanking them, they're not going to remember much of what you said, because it takes a couple minutes to kind of like get present in the conversation for most people. They're just gonna go like, oh, that felt nice. So we know that in terms of cold calls, 93% of cold call success is based on the tone and inflection of the voice. So when in doubt, be as warm as possible. Don't call on a grumpy day. If you miss someone, you go to voicemail. Don't you dare not leave a voicemail. Take advantage of every single voicemail inbox you get to. It's another touch point. I hope that was helpful to you. I am huge on thank you calls, and so when I saw this study about fell out of my chair, I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? But now you know. Phone calls are very important to you. Unless you're a public TV station and you don't have a great retention thank you follow-up program, then maybe thank you calls aren't going to move the needle. But I'd recommend you do no matter what. My name's Danielle Wallace. I'm the owner of Grow Better. I help small to mid-sized nonprofits optimize their fundraising results. I really enjoy doing project-based work. So if you are coming up on, you got to do a fundraising campaign before the tax season, you need to acquire monthly donors. Whatever you've got, let's just meet, talk about it, see if I can help you. There is a link in bio to book with me. And again, it's just always fun to talk to you. So thank you for your time, and I will see you next week.